Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Augusta F. Smallshaw, 1980, Part 2. This is the continuation of the interview conducted by Dorothy Palmer in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. And Dorothy Palmer was with the Prairie Family History Group, and she was interviewing my mother's mother, my grandmother, Augusta Smallshaw, whom they called Gus. Dorothy Palmer. You wouldn't, of course, have any radio or TV in those days. Did you spend a lot of time reading or sewing or knitting? What did you do in place of what you would do now? Augusta Smallshaw. Well, Mother used to sew for us children, and Mother was a great reader, a very good reader. We brought a lot of literature, encyclopedias, all kinds of books from England. We had quite a library. Mother used to read stories to us children until we got old enough to read ourselves. Did you have any magazines? Yes, we used to get magazines from England. What was the newspaper at that time? The Family Herald and Weekly Star. There was all kinds of stuff in that for farm people, recipes and how to make things. Very, very interesting. And then there was the Farmer's Advocate, another magazine. I imagine they're all gone now. Mother was a very good knitter, not so good at sewing, but she did make us children clothes. Dad mostly read for entertainment. Did you have any music in the house at all? Yes. When the Long Laketon Church bought a new organ, Dad bought the old organ that they were passing on. And I remember he got it for quite reasonable, but it was still working, and Mother knew music. She taught us the rudiments of music, so we could play hymns, and we had quite a few hymn books. I remember I played every hymn in the Presbyterian hymn book. Ha, ha, ha. What about holidays, times like Christmas or Thanksgiving? How did you celebrate? It was much more simple. Dad always got a Christmas tree out of the bluff, and Mother used to decorate it. In school, we had a lovely Christmas tree, a fir tree. I don't know where they got it. I don't remember any fir trees growing around there, but they did. That was a big deal. The Christmas tree in the schoolhouse. Everybody had to do something toward entertainment. One of the farmers or the minister came in as Santa Claus. We believed in Santa Claus for a long time, and then started getting doubts, but we always had a nice concert. I would recite, and Mother had a lovely voice, and she would sing a few solos. It was something to look forward to, the Christmas concert. It was shortly before Christmas, of course, because we closed the school for Christmas time. As you became a teenager, you said you came into the city to work. What year would that be approximately? I came to Regina to live with my older sister who was married and had a little girl about 1917. We came to the farm in 1903, so we were out on the homestead for 14 years. I stayed with my sister, and I went to business college and got a position. The First World War was on then. I got a position in a military office. My first job was in the old lumber post office where the trading company was built eventually. I worked on the second floor. I remember going up these stairs. It was about to be demolished. I was afraid every time I went up that the steps were going to break down. Then I got transferred to the Garrison Regiment in the old Alexander School, about where the Capitol Theater is now in Regina. I imagine that old post office was Regina's first post office, because it was falling down at the time. I worked for the Soldiers' Settlement Board for 2 years. By that time, my brother had gone to Winnipeg and was working there. I thought I'd better myself by going to a bigger city and getting a job there, and I did. I stayed with my brother and his wife. Then George Smallshaw came to Winnipeg, and we got married there the 30th of December, 1922. We were married about a year, and I wanted to go to England. We left for England the 30th of April, 1924, and came back the first part of September. You went by rail to Montreal then to pick up a ship? Right. Yes, we took the train to Montreal and stayed overnight in Montreal and climbed up Mount Royal. And by that time I was expecting my first baby. And the folks wanted me to wait and take the baby as a baby, and I said no. I wasn't going to bathe the napkins with salt water on the boat. Ha ha ha. When we left Quebec, we sailed on a boat called the HMS Canada. The tape ends here, but the interview continues in 1986 in Lakeside, Ohio, with Peter Ray and Ruth Smallshaw asking questions. Ruth: tell them about heating the stones. Oh yes, to sleep in the tent. It was such a cold experience. We slept there until Christmas time, maybe later. We used to get stones, bake them hot, and put them in the bottom of the bed to keep our feet warm. It was a little bit of heat. These stones would stay hot for a long time. Ruth: you used to get them for your father's bed. Yeah, ha ha, terrible. You used to warm your father's bed. Yeah. And then your brother came home from the war. Your father had died. Peter: what was your brother like when he came home from World War I? Augusta Smallshaw: he was just terrible. I would have hardly known him. He grew. Of course, he was still growing when he left. He grew tall and he was shell-shocked. You know the shock from the shells. We went to a show one time and they used to have orchestras, you know. There were drums in the program, and my brother jumped. And I didn't realize, and I laughed. I thought it was so funny, and it made him feel so bad. I didn't realize that when you're shell-shocked, your nerves are all shattered. I shouldn't have laughed. I didn't realize what he had gone through. He was walking with a stick. He was wounded in his leg. He had a bullet in his arm, too, and he'd been gassed by mustard gas by the Germans. How long did it take to recover from all that? Years and years. I don't suppose he ever did really recover. A lovely personality, a lovely person. I loved him very, very much, and I know he loved me, because they said that when he died, they went through his things in the safety deposit box, and there was a letter he'd got from me and kept all those years. I'd have loved to have seen that letter, but his wife destroyed it. Have you had enough for tonight? That's enough. Okay, thanks a lot, Grandma. The listeners clapped. Now we have an article from the Regina Leader-Post, November 7th, 1992. In honor of Augusta Lillian Fisher Smallshaw for the celebration of her 95th birthday, an English high tea was held at St. Peter's Anglican Church, Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, on Saturday, October 24th from 3 o'clock p.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Augusta Lillian Fisher Smallshaw was born October 24th, 1897, in South Wold, Suffolk, England, to Sergeant Major Herbert Fisher and Julia Barham Fisher. Her father had been in the Royal Artillery with Queen Victoria's Army in foreign service in Egypt. In 1903, the family came from England to Craven, Saskatchewan, Canada, when Augusta was 5. Augusta came to Regina and attended Regina Business College and became secretary for the federal government doing discharges for the Canadian Army. In 1922, she married George William Smallshaw, newspaper editor and owner of the Yellow Grass Herald, who later worked for the Regina Leader-Post for 25 years. Augusta was Sunday school teacher and superintendent of St. Peter's Sunday School for 25 years. Worked in Saskatchewan politics, is an award-winning China painting artist, and enjoys bridge and traveling. They had 2 children, 7 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. Their son Bud was civil servant for the Saskatchewan government. Daughter Ruth was a teacher of the deaf, artist, and married Cleveland trial attorney John S. Ray. Grandchildren Mark, naturopathy in California. Pamela, Brian, editor, Tokyo, Japan. Patricia, U.S. psychiatrist, Harvard Fellow. Boston. Janet, 3 children, Toronto. Peter, educator, Manila, Philippines. Joan, biochemistry, medical research in Saskatoon. Out-of-town guests included Mrs. John S. Ray, Cleveland, Janet and Tess Conway, Toronto, Ontario, Joan Smallshaw, Debbie Grassi, Saskatoon. Now here's an anonymous poem called Grandma. In the dim and distant past, when life's tempo wasn't fast, Grandma used to rock and knit, crochet, tat, and babysit. When the kids were in a jam, they could always count on Gram. In an age of gracious living, Grandma was the gal for giving. Grandma now is at the gym, exercising to keep slim. She's off touring with the bunch, taking clients out to lunch. Driving north to ski and curl, all her days are in a whirl. Nothing seems to stop or block her, now that Grandma's off her rocker. Here's an essay I wrote in high school, 1976, when I was 16. And it's called Creative Writing, Character Sketch, Augusta Smallshaw. She's my Grandma Smallshaw, and she's very old, over 80, I think. She looks like she's no older than 60. She's my ma's ma, and was born in England in the late 1890s. She was relocated in Saskatchewan, Canada, because of the promise for a better life. She was only 5. The climate was very harsh, and death was commonplace. Today, my dad calls her Gus, although her name is Augusta Lillian. The vibrance that she possesses is quite unique for her age, any age for that matter. She's been to Hawaii, the Bahamas, Colorado, and the Arctic Ocean in the last 10 years. She walks to church in the dead of winter. Canadian winters are not comparable to ours. Last summer, I had the pleasure of really getting to know her. Her likeness to Mr. Magoo is astounding. She epitomizes kindness and loving and is talkative in a positive sense. She's game for anything. Her eyes and ears have long been defective, like Mr. Magoo's. My parents, Grandma, and I were in a restaurant in Colorado late one night last summer. It was breezy that night. While waiting for dinner, I noticed my Grandma peering intently out the window. She asked my mother what this wonderful thing was outside. She thought it was a perpetual motion machine, but it was a garbage can top swinging in the wind. One time my mother asked her, How do you feel today, Mother?" She replied, "Oh yes, the mountains are lovely, dearie." She speaks with a whistle, which adds to the fun. She has dentures. One time the 4 of us walked into a library on tour of a college library. Grandma took a wrong turn and I saw her reading a periodical. It was just like Mr. Magoo. She's sweet and never speaks a bad word. It's amazing to see how alive in spirit she is, when most people her age are as good as dead. I love her. Now we have 3 comments, and the first is from John S. Ray, my father. SFMC, your SFMC number 11 has been looked at and read with great interest. What a beautiful and appropriate cover. Augusta's early days are a never-ending source of interest. She's a great lady. John Stuart Ray, Cleveland, Ohio, United States of America. And the next comment is from my mother, Ruth Smallshaw Ray. What a wonderful gift you are providing for our families. The interview of Mother was so good. I had listened to that tape for the Prairie Family History Group. It was so hard to listen to, and I was amazed that you could transcribe it so well. Mother's early family life has come alive. She told me, but it needed refreshing. Because of your research, we were able to have a reunion with Mother's cherished brother Alfred's 2 sons, my first cousins, Ted and wife Shirley, and Maurice and wife June Fisher, at their stunning home in Santa Barbara, California, long-lost cousins. The Fisher family and name are alive and well in California and all over the U.S. Grandpa Herbert Shadrach Fisher was so worried when his only son Alfred went to World War I at age 16 and said he'd never see his son again, nor did he. He had named Mother with initials ALF, wanting a son, and named Norma Fisher to preserve the Fisher name. Now you are preserving the memories. Thank you. Blessings. Florence Ruth Smallshaw Ray, Rocky River, Ohio, United States. And the next comment is from Ted and Shirley Fisher. How much we enjoyed meeting your delightful parents last Friday. Ted had the pleasure of talking with your dad, but I got to spend most of the time with your mom, who is a love, as you well know, and she brought the photographs. Ruth talked a lot about both of you, and also about the island and little cabin in the Caribbean. Peter, we know you are the main correspondent of the family, but please encourage Alice to write us at least one letter, if she can break away from her work and that little cute son, Tim, for a few minutes. Oh, that reminds me. All that material you sent about Aunt Gus must cost you a bundle to be mailing out to everyone. Please accept this check to defray some of the expense. And remember, if they ever make a movie, we want our share. Love to the three of you, Ted and Shirley Fisher, Los Osos, California, United States. So that concludes today's presentation, Augusta Fisher Smallshaw 1980 Part 2. Good luck to you in your efforts in family history if this interests you, finding, preserving, and sharing old letters, diaries, and photographs, and interviewing elderly relatives while they're alive. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray, peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.